Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, the Kenyan Supreme Court reveals the details behind why it ordered a rerun of last month's presidential election. Judges slammed the electoral board for not checking results from polling stations properly before announcing Uhuru Kenyatta's win. Also, more protests in Togo on the week that a referendum on constitutional reform has been forced. At least one person is killed as demonstrations both for and against the dynasty of President Faure Gnassingbé are held. And faced with rapidly disappearing forests and lemurs that live in them, villagers in one part of Madagascar are taking over the management of tourism in the hope of offering a lifeline for the very animals drawing visitors in. But first, on Wednesday, as the Supreme Court revealed details behind its decision to annul President Uhuru Kenyatta's victory in last month's presidential election, judges slammed the election board for failing to verify results before announcing them. Judges stopped short of saying that the polls had been rigged, but did say that illegalities in the counting process couldn't be overlooked. The IEBC board was also criticised for refusing to comply with a court order to open its computer servers after Raila Odinga made allegations of fraud and challenged the results.
To the moment of delivery of the Supreme Court's decision.
Well, we're joined now by Julia Stairs. Julia, what should the IEBC have done at the time?
The court really said that for them, it came down to tallying and very basic verifiability. As you said, they came down very hard against the Independent Electoral Commission here for failing to do its due diligence and its constitutional responsibility by verifying the tally of the election. They said that they failed to check the electronic tally against the physical forms, that they announced the vote before all of the physical forms were in, and in the end didn't even get all of the physical forms, and that many of the forms that came in from the polling station showed huge irregularities that could not be ignored. There were no signatures, there were watermarks missing, and these were irregularities that the court said were widespread. Of course, as you mentioned, the Electoral Commission also failed to provide full access to its servers, which the court said did support opposition claims that the servers could have been compromised. The court stopped short of saying there was outright rigging, but it also left this open as a possibility.
Now, at the time, international observers gave the election a clean bill of health. How does the court findings reflect on the whole international observer process?
Well, the court did mention the international observers in its reading today. They didn't harp on it, but they did say that the observers failed to really do anything besides verify that the polling went well, so that physically actually what happened inside the polling stations went well, and that they didn't really wait to hear how the tallying was going, how the electronic transmission was going, how the technological side of things was going before basically giving the election a gold standard. So the European Union Electoral Monitoring Commission remains on the ground in Kenya. They say they will be involved in this October rerun. But obviously, many people here in Kenya are doubting whether or not these international observers add any extra layer of credibility to the verifiability of the election results. And of course, the court today saying that the monitors themselves failed to do much more to ensure that the IEBC ran a credible, transparent, and fair election.
Thanks very much. Julia Stairs there for us in Nairobi. Now, at least one person was killed in Mango, northern Togo, on Wednesday during demonstrations by crowds demanding President Faure Gnassingbé step down. Now, rallies were held across the country and were the latest protests against the 50 years Gnassingbe's family has been running the country. In the capital, government supporters also held rival marches as the political standoff ramps up. Nicolas Chemin tells us more.
The streets of Lomé were packed because both the ruling party and the opposition had organised marches. Supporters of President Faure Gnassingbé fear current political tensions could lead to violence.
We want reforms, but we also want security. We want peace. Otherwise, there can be no development.
I want peace in Togo. That's why I'm marching.
Opposition supporters marched in several different towns, including the capital. On Tuesday, their lawmakers boycotted a vote on constitutional reform. This means there will now be a referendum on the issue in the coming months. Gnassingbé's family has ruled Togo for 50 years. His critics say the referendum will never be free and fair.
Our strategy is to mobilize the people in favor of the 1992 Constitution that clearly stipulates that no one can do more than 2 mandates. This will have consequences.
We want change. Faure must step down. Togo is not his kingdom.
The new bill says there should be a maximum of 2 presidential mandates, but the measure will not be applied retroactively. Therefore, Gnassingbé could run again in 2020 and 2025. Tensions are running high. The police lined the streets, and mobile phone networks and 3G services appeared to have been cut off.
Nigeria's Air Force deployed aircraft to the southeast of the country to ramp up operations responding to secessionist unrest in the area formerly known as Biafra. Military presence in Abia State's been increased, and that's led to clashes with members of the secessionist group, the Indigenous People of Biafra, or IPOB. Last week, they accused troops of persecuting its members, allegations that the military has denied. Now, restrictive laws on organ donation in Algeria has led to a long wait list of the hopeful. Compounded with a lack of donors, the hurdles means that the country, like many others across North Africa, sees a high rate of mortality amongst those needing organs.
By offering her a kidney, Aisha's son put an end to her years of regular dialysis. Like her, more than 22,000 people in Algeria suffer from kidney failure. A third of them hope for a transplant.
It changed a lot of things. Before, it was very difficult with the dialysis machine. As I have children, I have a lot to do at home, and when I came home, I was tired all the time and sick. Every other day, I was in the hospital. It was too much. But now, thank God, I can take care of my house and my children.
But here, as well as in Morocco and Tunisia, many other patients suffer or die for lack of donors. Further complicating the issue are laws restricting organ removal from the deceased without family consent.
Now in Algeria, we don't have clear laws when it comes to the consent of deceased donors, so we are always dealing with the relatives of the deceased. We await a new law that's on its way. I think things will be much more efficient and clear.
It's possible to take organs from living donors, but according to Algerian law, they can only donate to their parents, children, siblings, or spouses. Cultural and religious anxieties also get in the way, with some fearing organ donation could break Islamic tenets. But this Muslim theologian says that's not the case.
We assume that God, as the supreme intellect and supreme ruler, will be able to restore these bodies, put everything in its proper place. So taking from the deceased and the organ donation that currently takes place are both lawful.
Algerian lawmakers are looking into reforming current restrictions. The idea is to allow potential donors to put their wishes into writing before it's too late, avoiding the issue of family permission altogether.
Madagascar's struggling with an environmental crisis. Over the last 50 years, almost all of its forests have disappeared. Now, the threat has cost it most of its lemurs, and those that remain face a precarious future. Villagers, though, in one part of eastern Madagascar are trying to turn tourism into a lifeline for the very animals drawing visitors in. Our correspondent sent us this report.
Shrill calls echo throughout the forests to the fascination of mesmerized tourists. The cry belongs to the Indri, the largest of the lemurs living in Madagascar. The Big Island is the only country in the world where it can be seen in the wild.
I really wanted to come and see the lemurs, so I'm scoring here.
They're so cute. And they look at you, and it looks like they're really looking at you.
But these may be the last in existence. Deforestation has wiped out almost all of their natural habitat, the country's primary forests, leaving lemurs with nowhere to roam free. Out of 112 lemur species, 100 are endangered. That's 94% overall.
Before, there were very few of them, mainly because of poaching. They were caught, and then they were illegally exported.
In 2007, an association of villagers decided to save what was left of the forests. The state gave them approximately 30 hectares, and they created a community park and reforested the area. Today, this patch of forest has been given a second life, and the lemurs have returned.
It's the communities on the ground who see what's happening. They're the ones who can destroy, but who can also rebuild. It's better if those in charge of protecting the area are the ones managing the profits in order to improve their lives.
With the proceeds from the park, the association's been able to build a water tower so villagers have free access to running water. This form of united ecotourism is a small example of how resources can be managed by the population in an industry overwhelmingly owned by major tour operators. In this struggling state, it's also a belated but critical chance to slow the destruction of the country's unique biodiversity.
That report by Gael Borja. That, though, is where we'll have to leave it for now. Thanks for joining us. Do so again. Take care.